Dan, it's a good thing you said I was going to give some ministry updates, because I thought what I wanted to do is, in fact, let's just do this. Let's practice a couple of those moves from the song, can we? All right, so, you can still stay seated. Jan, you can stand up. That's fine. So let's put hands out, fingers, just kind of shake them up. Okay, now make a fist. Okay, like you're mad at me because I'm making you do. Okay, now here we go. Just do the whole build on the rock kind of thing. Yeah, good. All right. Now, what was one of the other ones? Like this? Yeah. Now, that's good for today. Give yourselves a hand. Now, why do we want to do these kind of things? Why would we want to do that? Here's what I found. In all the years that I've been in ministry to children, if we can, I'll call it, humble ourselves and do these things, the likelihood of the children engaging, let's turn that one off. I'll turn this one off here. I'll use this one. If we can humble ourselves and do this, the likelihood of the kids engaging goes up significantly. Now, you and I both know that for the first 2 or 3 times they're going to look at us like, where are your skills? They're going to think. And we'll tell them, like, it just wasn't appropriate to do this kind of stuff, when we were kids, right, in church. Because, like, did they teach you in church to sit down and look glum? Yeah. Okay, Carol's like, no. Carol, good. I expect Ring Cast and Bible Adventure to be full of energy then. Yeah. But, in fact, my great-grandmother, the Minnesota State Fair, they have this one thing called the Dancing Waters. Yeah, now it was just where it's the first time a guy found these pumps where they'd shoot water from a pool to a pool, but she would not go there because it was called Dancing Waters. Okay. And to this day, that's why I'm in ministry. Can you believe it? No, just kidding. Can you imagine what? Sorry. So here we are today, and some of you, if you were at the VLT, you saw this slide that I showed you. My least favorite color in some ways, right? What color is this? Red. Remember when we were red? Yeah, and you were like shut down, you couldn't do anything? One of the things that we were praying for so hard is that there would be an announcement made by May the 22nd that on the 29th we would go yellow. Now, why were we praying this? Because this was essential for us to be able to start staff training so that we could start summer camp. And by God's grace, on the 22nd, and so many of you were praying with us, we were announced yellow by the 29th. Now, we had to take a lot of steps of faith to get there. And I look back at that now, and I say, wow, that was simple compared to what we're dealing with now. Now, that was simple. But by the 22nd, God said by the 29th. Now, do you know that even in Lancaster County, where it was 2 weeks later for them, most of the churches are still not meeting there. So when we have our gathering tomorrow in Lancaster, there's going to be, 30 people with us there. 2 weeks made a huge difference in what happened during the summer. The week of camp that we would have normally done in Lancaster, we couldn't do. So yellow meant the first 2 weeks of summer camp, we only had day camp, and it meant that we had 7 chapels during 1 week a day. Meaning like no more than 25 in this room, no more than 25. It meant that every lunch was served out of a box somewhere around the facility. But we knew this was a start. We knew we had to open the door somehow. So we were praying and trusting and promoting and believing that by June 12th, we would be announced green for the 19th. And God did this. But the question really is, so what now? What does this mean now? What does it look like for Bible Adventure? And one of the questions I receive regularly is, what are we doing for Bible Adventure? What are we doing for Bible Adventure? Well, with about 90 different programs, there's not quite 90 different answers. But what I can tell you, the last report that I received, and this has probably changed within the last 30 minutes, there are 49 schools that we are aware of that are fully open. Okay, 49 that are fully open, that we're involved with. 6 are, yes, praise the Lord for that. 6 are having some type of A-B hybrid. 17 are fully online. So how are we going to do? Well, we're going to do online like we've done online before. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but Zoom, any of you know what Zoom means? This isn't like the old days, Zoom, when we had airplanes and we're flying around in our head. This is like the online meeting. Zoom had a big crash yesterday. Yes. Well, imagine so many kids going back to school, so many colleges, so many people using it. I think they said they have it fixed and they're ready for today, but this is kind of the first big crash that they've had. 18 of the schools, though, are still unknown. How many of you like it when we know things a whole lot more? How many of you like it when we get it all figured out? Yes. And that's not where we're living in now. Well, I do want to just give you a couple updates. One of the things is this summer God provided in an amazing way, almost $53,000 so that 443 children who needed some type of financial assistance could come and be part of summer camp. We had 1,203 campers. Yes, we praise the Lord for that. Of that, now that was 79% of our original goal for the summer. So it wasn't close to what we thought, but we were still amazed for that. And I can tell you, as I've talked to other camp directors, some who were grateful that they had 40% of what they had thought for this summer. We're really pleased with what God did. Now, when you think of all the staff and the volunteers we had, we probably had almost 300 staff and volunteers in and out throughout the summer. You know what our biggest fear, well, not our biggest, but one of the biggest fears related specifically to the summer was what? COVID. That kids are going to come here and get COVID. And so as our board wrestled through and made this decision, it was with that awareness. Now hear me very carefully here. We love children dearly. And we love children so much that we value their spiritual destination over potential physical risks that might occur through COVID. Did you hear what I'm saying? Like, we value them. So we did everything that we could to make things safe here this summer. Children were not required to wear masks. But a lot of staff had to wear masks in a lot of different situations. And we know this can be really uncomfortable. But when we got all the way through 8 weeks of summer plus a couple weeks of training, I can tell you, praise God, not one reported case or any awareness of COVID whatsoever. Is this amazing? Yes. Now, we weren't claiming that, and we just wanted to be as safe as possible. Now, what might happen going forward? Who knows, right? Like, here's what I can tell you, though, with certainty, that there will come a time that each one of us will meet our Creator. You know what I'm saying? I just turned the big 5 this summer, So that means I'm getting closer. But God knows my day. God knew my day a long time. God knew my day that I was going to come home a long time before I even got there. You know what I'm saying? And he knew this a long time. He knew COVID was coming. But it's not related to this. One of the biggest things that as believers we can do is we can keep our perspective focused on biblical doctrine and truth. So what did God do during the summer? Well, let me just throw up some numbers here, the best that we can tell from what we've learned. A lot of life change occurred. Just look at the bottom here. 125 children began relationships with Jesus during the summer. And we praise God for that. I want to put a smiling face on here to let you know that Jeanette Beeksecker, after over 16 years of ministry with us, it felt as if we were celebrating with her that the Lord is moving her to the next stage of ministry. We're sad that she's not here, but excited by what God is doing in and through her. And so why do I tell you this? Because so many of you got used to seeing her name in your email inbox over the years. And it won't always be her. If it ever is her name in the future, it's because there's some computer memory of her. So we apologize in advance. It might just happen. But her name's Edward or things. In some key ways, some of her duties are going to be picked up. And we'll know more what this looks like. But some key ways, some of her duties are going to be picked up by this guy named Nate, who's been with us the last 7 years. Nate's in the back. He's got a mask on. Why don't you stand up so they can see you? Nate has been involved in our 412 leadership training program. And for the next month, as we're kind of moving forward, Nate's going to have kind of dual role overseeing both of these areas. And we brought in a new creative marketing coordinator as well, who will be starting next week to do some things with us in that regard. So just to kind of keep you up to date on what's going on. Of course, you can follow us here, right? Today, probably these are some positions. Would you do me a favor and just write down specifically and pray for these 3 equipping coordinators that are still needed for York and Gilbert and anything else that you want to need? Well, I'm sure you love all children, and so pray for them. Shippensburg area. Many of you know that Erica used to serve as our EC in the Green Castle kind of surrounding area. Erica has now moved to become the Bible Adventure Administrative Assistant. So if you would pray for these, and it's as you're praying, the Lord says, maybe you should talk to them about this. I'll give you an option. You can ignore the Lord, and you know how well that works. Or, you can like just check out something. Talk to Jan, or talk to Susie, or talk to, I don't care who you talk to, but just talk to someone. Talk to the Lord for sure. Just let them know that you're interested in that. This is actually a volunteer mine that went out this morning. This is a photo of it. How many of you get this in your email? Keep your hand up if you watch them and memorize them. No, just kidding. They went down fast, didn't they? This is our best attempt to try to communicate with you. One of the things we've heard over the years, there's 2 things that we hear, okay? Sometimes we hear you guys don't communicate with us and you don't tell us anything. And then sometimes we hear you give us too much information. We've spun our heads around a little bit trying to figure this out. But the real key is we want to make sure we try to give you the stuff that you need when you need it. So this is our attempt to do this. Why? Because we want you to help children take as many ministry opportunities as possible. One of the things that you guys do is really encourage kids to come to retreats and to come to summer camp. And if you could have been here this summer and see parents and children who had been locked down for several months, you could have seen their faces back. I remember talking to one father. It was a drive-through registration. We couldn't get my parents out of their cars. One father was out there. He said, about an hour before we were planning on leaving, my kids, who are never on time for anything, loaded up the car themselves and said, "Dad, let's go." He said, "So this is why we're here." And for them, both parents, who were working now full-time at home while their kids were trying to do online school at home, I think those parents brought their kids back for 3 weeks. Yes. But, you know what it's like, just the value on that. Keep praying if you would. We really want to see God's power as we proclaim His name on purpose. That's our theme for victory in the bus situation and for the capital campaign. Some of you may or may not know what this is. We've had a desperate need to remodel or expand the dining hall, and if you realize this, right in this area is where our offices are right now, which they're not sufficient. So if you go in and look at any one of them, there's 2 or 3 people sharing many of them. So they would need to be removed to invest in the building of the new welcome center. But we reached a goal of $900,000 of commitments for the welcome center, and we put it out to bid. But do you know, when we put it out to bid in July, at that point the price of lumber was up 62% over the beginning of the pandemic. The price of lumber it has doubled since then. In the last 2 weeks, our general contractor has told us yesterday the price of lumber for the project went up almost $12,000. So we're not pulling the trigger quite yet. Of course, when will that? These are interesting times, to say the least. So keep praying with us because there's a desperate need for this. So we're doing some meeting. How can we cut costs? What can we change, rearrange, to try to get this moving just as quickly as possible? And so the third part of that is the Shepherd's Lodge, which provides additional housing for staff during the summer and then our guests throughout the year. The upper level has a pastor speaker suite, a lobby, and a meeting room. And then the lower level has 7 meeting rooms that could hold families that are a little bit nicer, kind of like our lodge. But right now, none of our lodge rooms are more than 2 people. And so as the ministry's expanded, there's just been a greater need for this over the years. Now, if you're with us at the BLT, this would be just a quick reminder for you. If you're not, hopefully this will inspire you to go and watch the online message that has been saved from the BLT. But I gave you 4 great ways to avoid this. And you're thinking, that sounds really unbiblical. Well, it came right out of Numbers 13 and 14. Of course, it wasn't a great example, was it? You know, this is where the 12 men went to spy on a king. 10 were bad and 2 were good. Well, so if we want to avoid risk as we go through this year, I'm going to suggest, first of all, that you focus your attention on the obstacles rather than the objective. Now, how many of you have ever followed these guys? Got fixed on the obstacles rather than the objective? Thanks for the 3 of you who said that. Okay. The second thing that we do is compare what we lack to what others possess, and then intimidation will replace confidence. How many of you have ever fallen into this? Like, oh my goodness, I don't have this one. Look what they have. Okay, none. Well, good. Okay, so the third thing is allow your emotions to take control of your situation. Here's the interesting thing. We live in a society right now which emotions are here. You know, something happens. And I don't, honestly, words are the next riot when you break out. You know, my wife was on the phone last night with her sister who lives in Minneapolis. They had several weeks of no riding, and she said last night after what happened in Wisconsin, she heard him downstairs that she's in the 4th floor of the apartment. She said it's happening here. When our emotions take control of the situation, then our desire for relief, of course, is still where it comes. The 4th thing is seek instant gratification rather than cultivating character. So I turned it around and I said, here's the 4 ways, just opposite of that, to engage in risky business. And as we're moving this year into Bible adventure, let's just be frank. This is one of the riskiest things that we can do. Wouldn't it be safer if we just sat at home, didn't do ministry, and let's come back in a year after this whole thing settles? But if we're going to engage in risky business, these are 4 things that we're going to need to do regularly. Number 1 is we're going to need to fix our attention on the Lord, not on the obstacles. Like, this is what we're going to have to do. And this is kind of a Hebrews 12:1 thing. It's a really good thing. Second thing is refuse to compare ourselves to anyone else at any time. Because it's so easy to compare. But no, let's not do this. Let's seek to get control of the emotions, like submit ourselves to the Spirit. Let Him know every day, or let us, each other, know we're God's child. He loves us, and then keep pursuing character, not comfort. Now, I share this in about 35 or 40 minutes. You got the really condensed version today. But if you just go to the Joy Out Generation website, you should be able to watch it there and get a little bit more of this. So why do we want to engage in risky business? This is really the question that we must ask. Why do we want to do this? This is a question we ask regularly. Why? You probably have heard us say this at least once before. And it is proven more true than ever. It is because life is hopeless without Jesus, and children need the hope of Jesus Christ. Have we not seen that hopelessness in a variety of ways again and again and again? And we want to do this. Well, as a team, we have prayed over this, wrestled through this, and we have resisted some of the things that are going on. One of the early calls that we heard during the pandemic, and we quickly said, no, we don't want this. One of the early calls that we heard during the pandemic is, can't we just get back to normal? And we said no. My prayer early on was, Lord, help me to get everything you want me to get out of this pandemic. I don't want to miss anything. And then I began praying for our ministry and for our churches that we would learn everything that the Lord wanted us. Like, these are great times where we can really hear from the Lord. And so we didn't want to go back to normal. In fact, we said we wanted to be better than before. And we realized that there were some key things as a ministry that we needed to do if we're going to be better than before. So we said the first thing, and this is what we had to do day after day, hour after hour, phone call after phone call, email after email, we had to help people move from fear to faith. They had to take a step by faith. And my thought is, as you're going to be talking to parents, should they let them out of the school? As we're talking to superintendents, we've got some schools that are saying, we are not letting kids out of the school to go to any programs. We've got some schools that are saying it. And here's why, because they're fearful that something's going to happen when they do this. We need to help people step by faith. Funny little story. As our team has been going out and meeting with superintendents in schools, they've been sharing with them, hey, here's the plan that we used this summer. Here's how we did it. Here's how, we went through and had no kids get COVID. Well, there's a local school district, I won't tell you which one, you might know, but they basically, I don't know if they did this intentionally or not, but they took our summer theme, setting sail. In fact, there's a video that came out from them where the school superintendent says, let's set sail. Okay? If maybe you've seen that video. I happen to live in that school district, if you know where I live. I'm thinking, but isn't this what the believers should be doing? Helping, see, we walk by what and not by sight. We walk by faith and not by sight. Now, we've always known this and often been able to resist it, but right now we have a huge opportunity to do this. But the second thing we need to do is inspire hope. Now, we don't do this by reading the news. Give me an article or two, and my hope goes down like this. So where do we get hope? We get hope by going to the Word. A psalm's a great place if you want some hope. Get some hope out of there. Read Revelation right now. Read First Thessalonians. There are so much hope that we get because, our faith and love are really important. But hope comes when we really believe that what God says is going to happen is going to happen. And folks, I don't know a better time for believers to step out in front and say, there is hope. Really, should any one of us be concerned that this might take us physically? No, because we know eternally where we will be. And as Paul writes, says, we do not grieve like those who have no hope. Now, I'm not saying it's not tough. I am not saying this. In fact, last week, two people that I consider very dear to me who have been involved in this ministry went home with the Lord. But it says we grieve, we just don't grieve like those who have no hope. As believers, one of the biggest things that we're going to need to do is be better than hope. So then the third thing is we're going to have to take a big risk. Just plain and simple. There are going to be risks that we might have to take. Our risk might just be that we're going to do this Bible adventure thing. How? Well, we know this, we know this, we know this. We don't know this, or this. But what do we have? Well, we have this promise that says, the Lord will guide you always. What happens at the end of this as we do these things? God gets glorified. God gets lifted up. Back to the message that I gave at the BLTs were Numbers 13 and 14, and where these Israelites, the 10 guys are like, no, not going to happen. Their lack of faith prevented the Lord from being lifted up and glorified to all. When we take steps of faith, when we provide and fill people with hope, not just like sharing the gossip rumor chains or the worst of the worst. When we take these risks and when people see God show up, they can't help but be moved by God. I don't know about anyone bigger than God who can give us a great lesson and guide us through hope. You know what I'm saying? And as believers, we have this hope as an anchor for our soul, firm and secure. And so this is what we have the opportunity to share this year. I can't tell you how many conversations I think you will have with children and with parents this year that will be able to direct them directly to our God, the God of all time, the God of all. And I'm looking forward to these opportunities. Now, let's be saying, boy, that sounds like a lot of work. Oh, it is. This summer was probably the hardest summer we have ever had to serve. And we're so tired of this summer. Okay? We were tired going into summer because all we had to do. But our God provided strength and endurance every day. And we relied on Him for every other day. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you God will show up. Well, our purpose during this time today is to inspire you, to equip you, over the last couple of years, in fact, especially during the big lockdown, our instructor today, Scott Simonton, did a variety of Zoom lessons for students through our leadership training program. Now, Scott's worked with a lot of students, young students, all the way up to graduate students. Scott has a great way of communicating today. I will guarantee you'll understand a good part of what he shares, and some of it will go over your head, but you'll want to figure it out a little bit more. But you're going to understand most of it. He has consistently been nominated as Educator of the Year. He has this unique background in applied science and education leadership. So what this means is audiences like you guys are going to receive a lot of easy-to-use tools that are going to help you as you communicate with students who are questioning the gospel. They might question science, they might question Christianity. So Scott's currently an adjunct professor at Penn State, Mount Alto, and he's a medical physicist at Wellspring. So I think you're going to be really pleased to hear from Scott today. So we welcome Scott with me.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time, investing the time with us. So it's important for us to give you something that's useful. Now, when we were talking about, well, what kind of topics should we cover that'll be helpful? Well, since the purpose was a theme, we said, well, what's the purpose of life? Yeah, let's hit that question. And then we were talking about some evidences for God that I covered before, and they were like, we want more of that. So let's also cover, does God exist? So we're covering, does God exist, and what's the purpose of life in 70 minutes? Now, I know if I were you, this is what I would be thinking. Those are two of the biggest questions in our life. There's been millions of books. There's been countless artists, and the best thinkers throughout all time have commented on this. It's impossible, regardless of this guy's education or background, it's impossible this guy is going to give us anything reliable. And that thought would be correct if the answers depended on me. But the impossible not only becomes possible, but also probable if you use the right source. The source that I use to get the answers that I'm going to give you is a source you can verify. In fact, this source has been verified. The verification for this source comes from all the diverse fields of study that you can apply to it, and is on a level that no other opinion, claim, or belief system can reach. Now that sounds like a really bold claim until you start looking into it and look at this comprehensive case of evidence. What we're going to do is, though, we're just going to go into a first part of it to hit these questions. So part one, we're going to talk about the two big questions. Part two, we're going to cover the bigger evidence, and then finally, you've got to make your biggest choice, or help others to do that. Oh, my clicker seems to have just died. Could you just advance it? All right. So again, these are two big questions. But we can already show you that most people make it more complicated than it really is. Because the second question actually depends on the first. They are linked. Let me illustrate that for you. Go ahead and click for the next one. All right. What is the purpose of this? Now, if you can't see it clearly, here's what it is. It's a small battery. At one end is taped about a 6-inch piece of fishing line. And at the end of that 6-inch piece of fishing line, there's some tape. At the other end of the battery, you have more fishing line tape, except this fishing line is a long line. Now, what is the purpose of this? I'll give you a hint. If you're a troublemaker, you have a better guess. You'll have a better odds of guessing what this is for. Now, there can be other purposes of this. I guarantee you, some, especially kids, you show a few 10-year-olds, What can you use this for? They'll come up with all kinds of purposes. Can you think of any? Shock people. There's a troublemaker at heart. What else? Yes? Yeah, you can just swing it around for fun. Or if you have some bug that's been irritating you, you can stick them on the end of that tape and then swing them around and make it real dizzy if bugs get dizzy. Okay, those are purposes. Creative ones too. Thanks for giving those. But only the one who created that would know the objective purpose or the true purpose. Thankfully, myself and two of my friends are the ones who created that. So I'll tell you exactly what it was made for. We made that so that when it starts getting dark, or when it already is dark, I would sneak up to someone's front door, I'd tape the tape on it, and then I'd make sure that the battery doesn't hit the door. I don't want to hit it yet. Then I string out the fishing line so I can go hide behind a car or some bushes. Then once I'm hiding, I pull the long fishing line, the battery's swinging, it knocks the door. So the person comes, and now this is really tricky. When they come and open the door to see who's there, I got to make sure the battery's at an angle so it's not hitting while they have the door open looking, oh, who did that? So then they close it. I wait a few minutes. Knock. They open it up again, they're a little bit madder. The last times I do it, usually I get 3 or 4 times in. What I try to do is right when they shut the door, I make it knock. And then that freaks them out. And then finally, sometimes, if they let me go this long, at the very end, while they haven't opened, I make it knock. Now, they usually have found me by then because I couldn't help myself. I was laughing so hard. Even if I'm hiding behind a car, you just hear me just totally going. So, now, there could be other purposes for this. Purposes with a little piece. Well, is that me or? There could be purposes with a little p. You can come up with other purposes for this, but only the creator can tell you what the true objective purpose is. Okay, here's how it ties in. Question 1, does God exist? Question 2, what's the purpose of life? Question number 2 depends on question number 1. And let me show you how simple this is. People make this so complicated. Either an intelligent, purposeful creator of the universe exists, or it doesn't. Those are the only 2 options. A or non-A. Only 2 options. If a personal creator exists, then only that creator would know the objective, true purpose of why we were made. So there would be a purpose with a capital P that's equal for all people, places, and times. Now, and you can see that in the orange section. Now, we also can have other purposes like family, health, career. You know what? You want me to take? Let's do it. Yeah. Why don't you just take this off? I got a pretty loud voice. Okay. If it doesn't work, I got a loud voice. All right. So, if a personal creator exists, there is an objective purpose true for all people, places, and times. That's purpose with a capital P. But we can also have our own subjective, basically is made by the subject. We can have our own subjective purposes like family and friends and do good at your job. So there's that. That's one option. There's only one other option. If there is no creator, then all of us are the result of random chance and natural laws. Therefore, there is no objective purpose. So the only thing we can do is we just make up our own purposes, all with a little p. Make up our own purposes. All right? Some people's purpose is still going to be family, health. Some will be to dominate the world through force. No one can say one is better than the other because there's no standard to judge by. So you just make up whatever purpose you want. They're all equal in that regard. And it gets a little bit more touchy for some people than that. What atheists have recognized in all the different fields, biologists, the philosophers, physicists, they're all saying the same thing. I'll show you some of their quotes. If there is no spiritual mind that has purposed us and given us a spiritual side. So we have a spirit and our physical body. If we're just our physical body, there is no soul, then every single atom in your body and your brain is 100% controlled by initial conditions and natural laws. Which basically means every single atom is controlled. Therefore, every choice you make, feeling you think you have, thing you do, all of it is 100% determined by natural laws controlling the atoms in your brain. There's no way around that. Here is the co-discoverer of the double helix structure of DNA. He knows it. You think you have sorrows and love and that? No. That's just your atoms being forced through natural laws to do certain things. Yeah. Stephen Hawking, look what he says. They all recognize this. So, if a creator exists, then we have an objective purpose equal for all people that only that creator would be able to give us. And we have our own little purposes that we also make up, but they're kind of secondary and they're tying into that main purpose. Or there's no creator. And you can make up your own little purposes so you can try to have a happy little life. And that's fine. But really, you're not really controlling it. You're not making those decisions. Every single bit, everything in your life is completely controlled by natural law. And they know that. So those are the options. You have two options. And once you answer the does God exist question, you have your answer. So it's a lot simpler than people make it. So we got our two big questions. Now we're going to go to the bigger evidence. Because a lot of people will still say, okay, I see what you're saying. It is simple. There is only two possible options, but there's no way we can know. My question to them is always, how do you know you can't know? That's when they go, oh, yeah, I guess. and then I'll ask them, have you even looked into it? What evidence do you have? Do you have any? And that's when you usually get a little smirk where they're like, they're recognizing that, no, I'm just comfortable believing what I want, so I haven't really looked into it. But when you look into it, there's some amazing stuff there. See, we already know how to detect when it's an intelligent agent versus nature and chance. We already know how to do this. Researchers have done this all the time. Here's the different fields that they do if you can't read it. CSI, crime scene investigation. Every single one of those shows is about the difference between an intelligent agent acting or pure chance. You see a dead body on the ground, you can look at the evidence and figure it out because we know the properties that make an intelligent agent detectable. We use this in patent law, reverse engineering, code breaking, archaeology, anthropology, information. We use this all over the place. We know what makes an intelligent agent detectable. And we can use that on the universe. So here are the things that make an intelligent agent. So there are properties right there of an intelligent agent, and there's a properties of nature plus chance. Now, I have it on, it's on the handout for you. But the words, they're not going to make a lot of sense at first. You're going to think, oh, now we're getting into science words, and this doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'll show you how easy it is. So here's the first property you'll see when an intelligent agent is acting. Choice has to be made to make a pick within a certain range of options. Think about schoolroom lock. If you want to open it, you have to turn it to the first number. So if there's 60 numbers on there, you have a 1 in 60 chance of getting the right range. Second thing. Now, can chance still get things within a right range? Yes. But an intelligent agent doesn't do it just one time. An intelligent agent makes several choices within a range that all work together in a combination with each other. So schoolroom lock, You got to turn to the first number. You got a 1 in 60 chance there. Then you got to follow the pattern of skipping the second number and then going to the second number again. So you got a 1 in 60 chance for that number, and then going to the third number, turning it the other way. So all the numbers work in combination with each other. Choices within a range, and you have to make several that are in combination. And here's the real interesting part. They have to fit some external requirement or pattern that has nothing to do with the numbers themselves. For example, with a lock, you got to turn it to the left, then to the right, skip the second number and get to it, and then to the left again. That's an external pattern. Chance and wind and whatever has a hard time dealing with that. Now you've got ranges, combinations, and you need a mind to fit this to the pattern. Now, you're looking at a galaxy below there, nature and chance. Now, nature plus chance works on cause and effect. Natural laws can do some awesome stuff. They can create a galaxy. They can form, you can explain that beautiful spiral galaxy by the physics, the laws involved. However, with natural laws, it doesn't take much to describe it. They're not making choices within range or in combination or fitting an external pattern that way. In fact, what you find is repetitiveness, not complexity. Think of a snowflake. When you see a snowflake, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, that's so beautiful, that's artistic. Nature can do that. Why can't nature do everything? Well, snowflake's repetitive. First of all, I can describe it with natural laws, which is just a few simple instructions, and then just say repeat. So that's a difference there. Now, this still might not be making sense yet, but I'll show you. This is all common sense to us. We're made to know this already. So you don't have to memorize the words, ranges, combinations, external pattern. You'll see. Okay, on the left is Man in the Cliff in New Hampshire. On the right, Mount Rushmore. Can you tell which one was made by nature, which one was made by an intelligent agent? Now, Man in the Cliff, I gotta say though, when you see it at night with the shadows on it, it does look more like a face. It's pretty cool. But here's the thing, I can explain Man in the Cliff with natural laws. All I gotta use is erosion, rock fragmentation, gravity, and I can explain that. Mount Rushmore, wind, erosion, fragmentation, gravity is not a sufficient explanation for Mount Rushmore. You need something more. Here's why. When you're working on the eye, and let's say you're there, you're chiseling, trying to make the eye of George Washington. When you go to chisel, you can miss one way or another a little bit or whatever, but there's a range you better keep it in before you mess up. And that's not just one thing. You also have to work on the nose. You have to also work on the ear. You have to make constant choices among a range. All these choices have to work in combination with each other. All the choices of how to carve the nose have to work with the eye and everything to fit an external pattern or requirement. The picture of George Washington. Chance is not able to make choices among ranges in combination to fit something external. You need a mind to do that. And if you're still having trouble realizing that an intelligent agent did Mount Rushmore, you also have to consider the backside of Mount Rushmore. Now, I will show you, again, you don't have to memorize all this stuff. A child can figure out when an intelligent agent versus chance is acting. Here's my proof. You have a 10-year-old come downstairs, he sees an alphabet cereal box tipped over and letters out, and then he sees this. Is that kid thinking, how interesting that by chance it landed like that? If that slow-witted child is thinking that, their tail end is going to get the answer. His mom, or her mom, had to make a choice for that first letter among a range of options. You had 26 letters to choose from. Then you had to make another choice among a range of options. The A, then the K, then the E, then a space, then O. So you're making a choice among a range of options. They all have to work in combination. And what is the external pattern that they have to fit? The English language. The English language didn't make those letters form just like that. You needed a mind to make choices among a range of options, put them in combination to fit that external pattern. Child can figure this out. Now let's look at the universe. Stephen Hawking, probably the most famous physicist of our time, he was looking at the relationship. So in an atom, you have there's parts that make up the atom. You have protons and neutrons in the center nucleus, and then you have electrons and like a probability cloud around it. Now, Hawking found out that the proton, no matter where you are in the universe, is always 1,836 times more massive than the electron. Always. And then he started messing with things. Well, what if it wasn't? What if it was just a little bit this way, a little bit heavier, or a little bit less massive? What would happen? He found out what would happen. Molecules couldn't form. And that's a problem because we're made of molecules. So look what he says. He's like, the remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. And he wasn't talking just about the proton thing. At his time, he knew of about 40 of these things. And it was freaking him out. Now, these amazing finds that are just like, how did it land exactly where it's supposed to? It is on every size scale throughout the universe. Let's go even smaller than the atom. All right, here's a periodic table you got to memorize for chemistry. Now, protons and neutrons are made of things even smaller called quarks. If the quark, okay, there's a force between quarks called the strong nuclear force. It's an amazingly strong force. Now, if that force was just 5% weaker or 2% stronger, so it's like picture a radio dial, and it's set on the station you can hear. If you change it by 5% this way or 2% this way, station's gone, you hear nothing. If you do that with a quark, if by chance it just happened to be 5% this way or 2% this way, here's what you'd have to memorize for your periodic table. Just hydrogen. This universe would be one big gas, big hot air balloon, that's it, no life. Make chemistry class a lot easier, but then there's no chemistry class. Let's go to bigger size scale. Let's talk about planets and stars. I could go on for hours just talking about how freakishly coincidence our planet is compared to other planets. Now this one isn't even a big coincidence. This one's not that uncommon, but here's the thing. Any of you see, what is it, Apollo 13? Is that the one that had all the issues, Tom Hanks movie? Apollo 11 or Apollo 13? Okay. In that movie, I think it was Apollo 13, Tom Hanks was in it, it's a great movie. It shows that you better have everything just right. They're in a capsule in space, and they need to survive for only a week. And everything has to be just right. One thing screws up, and it's all chaos. And that's only surviving for 1 week what they had to go through. The Earth is a capsule in space. And our brightest minds put together Apollo 13, and it was still a struggle. The Earth, on the other hand, has to be able to hold not just, 3, 4 passengers that Apollo 13 did? It has to hold billions, and hold it over a vast amount of time. And here's one of the things that has to be just right. Earth is in the center of that crazy, colorful thing there. That's our magnetosphere. What that is thankfully Earth has iron and nickel in the core. And around it there's this liquid. And because of there's electrical currents and convection currents and heat differences going on, that causes this magnetosphere. And it's very good we have that. Here's why. There'd be no life otherwise. If we did see, the sun is kicking out radiation, And we just enjoy it as letting plants grow, get a tan, that's great. Here's the thing though, if we didn't have a magnetosphere, those charged particles are the radioactive kind that I use to treat patients with. You'd be getting treated for cancer that you don't have, and you would die. If you didn't die, some could survive, I think. However, without the magnetosphere, those charged particles would strip away the entire ozone, and then you would die. But instead, we have this sweet thing just set up to keep our capsule safe. Apollo 13 had stuff, they worried about radiation, and they only stayed a week. If they stayed any amount of time in space, you really have to guard for radiation. So the Earth has to have something way more sophisticated than the capsule. We have a magnetosphere. Basically, it's called a geodynamo we have. It's amazing. It's also when you see, every time you see the aurora borealis, northern lights, think of this, because what that is you'll notice there's like the magnetosphere, it's like a bubble in front and then like a teardrop behind. The parts where the charged particles actually do get to flow in towards Earth are at our poles. And as those charged particles flow in, they start hitting our ionosphere and start lighting up. That's what northern lights is. Doesn't get to us though, thank you. But it gives us a good show. So we get safety and beauty because of this thing. Oh, we can go bigger. Okay. Whenever you want to give the other side's argument, I'm going to give an atheist argument now. You don't want to cheapen it. You want to give it in its strongest version. When you try to make it when you try to change it and make it not so strong, that's called giving a straw man argument. That's bad logic. You don't want to do that. So, I'm going to give you, I'm going to try to give you their argument here. And where I got this from was, there was an atheist going around to college campuses in North America and Canada. And he's an atheist just debating Christians. He had a podcast and all this stuff. And he made the best arguments he could. Now, he had all this experience and everything, and when they asked me to do it, they said, well, how? I said, yeah, I'll do it. And, because they heard about me from my science background, they said, okay, so how'd you do on all your other debates? And I said, well, I've never debated in my life. This phone went totally silent. And then I kind of laughed at him, and I was like, don't worry about it. If it was on debate skill, I'd get demolished. But the problem for him is, this isn't a fair fight. All the evidence is on my side. It's going to be a really exposing time for him. And that is what happened. However, I got to say, the arguments he gave were the best that you could do. I was really impressed with what he came up with. He gave the best fight he could. And this one was one of them. So he said, if we're so special, how come we have vast universe that shows we're just nothing, we're dust? And what he did is, I don't even know if he showed this. He should have showed this. This helps. So what this is right there, the Voyager 1 space probe, it was getting done taking its picture of the solar system, starts heading out of the solar system, and Carl Sagan says, hey, turn around, take a picture of Earth now. So it turned around, takes a picture of Earth about 1 billion miles away. That's what it got. That little tiny blue dot, they call it the pale blue dot, that's us. Now some people, now this is so funny. If you don't have good arguments for your belief system, get them. Don't just make stuff up. When this came out, a bunch of Christians were like, well, no, look how special we are. We're right in the ray. No. The sun's rays go out in all directions equally. The only reason why it looks like that is the optics of the camera. So you're not helping. So he's like, look how little we are. In fact, there's a picture of the Earth right next to the sun in one of its, prominence or whatever. I mean, we're a little thing. And now the Earth is still massive enough. See, gravity depends on mass. And the Earth, it has enough mass that it can hold us to it. But now, compared to the sun has so much mass, it can hold planets to keep them in orbit around it. And now you think, wow, that sun's huge, that's awesome. No. There's where the sun is in our Milky Way galaxy. The sun is only one of 200 billion other stars in our galaxy. And like the sun keeps our planets going around it, there's a supermassive black hole right in the middle of our galaxy that keeps all our 200 billion stars going around Oh, we're looking pretty small now. His argument's looking really good. It's worse. If you go out tonight and you go like this to the sky, and the space that's behind your little finger pinky nail, if it could get enlarged with the best telescopes, this is what you'd see. Those are not stars. Those, well, almost, there's a few stars in there, but almost, basically 99% of the things you see there are all galaxies with 100 billion other stars. And it's expanding. It's even speeding up in its expansion. This universe is massive. And we're supposed to be important. So when he finished his argument, I said, boy, you brought up a really good point. Unfortunate for you, that point is at the end of a double-edged spear which just eviscerates your whole belief system. Let me show you why. Why is the universe so vast if we're special? Here's the answer. Because it had to be exactly as vast as it is. Now, you might be thinking, what? That's nonsense. That's what he thought, until you look into the facts. Then it freaks you out. Here's what it is. I did the calculation myself because I couldn't believe it. When the universe first came into existence, if it had less than when I did the calculations, it was less than a dime. Less than a dime's worth mass less, then the universe would have flung itself apart and all there would be is hydrogen and maybe helium, hot air balloon universe again. If by chance someone flicked in, or just by chance there's just less than a dime's worth more, when the universe first came into existence, it would have tried to spread out and then it would have collapsed in and on itself and a whole bunch of supermassive black holes and that's it. No life. The universe is exactly as massive as it has to be for advanced life to be here. Now you might be thinking, like I said, what are the odds of this happening? It's 1 in 10 to the 60th. We don't have any concept of 1 in 10 to the 60th. So let me give you some examples. When you are choosing what your purpose is, either purpose from a creator and then your other purposes, or just purposes you make up, and it could be anything, you are betting your life on that choice. Because, think about this, every choice you make, response you make, your goals, your objectives in life are all based on what you believe about whether there's a God or not and what's your purpose. All your goals, everything's based on that foundation. So it impacts you all through life. And if there's an afterlife, you can't measure how much that's going to impact you. So you're making a bet on this. Let's look at the odds you're doing. See what you're comfortable with betting your life on. Normally what I would do is I'd bring a kid up here and I'll say, okay, how many of you want to make a bet? I got a $20 bill right here. Come on up here if you're brave enough. I'm going to make a bet with you. And then I'll say, if you pick the right number 1 out of 20, you get the 20. If not, I'm going to punch you. They like that. I wind up all big too, and one little punk actually got the 20. Then I expand it. Well, how many of you would now bet your life? Let's say you're going to get $1 million. I've got $1 million, I'll give you 40. What if you could get $10 million, but you bet your life? If you're wrong, you die. If you're right, you get $10 million, and your odds are 1 in a million. How many would take that bet? Okay, and we go from there. So you want to, now $1 million, realize, I'll show you what they are. So here's the odds we're betting on right now. I have the odds of surviving a fall without a parachute. It's sad that they have enough evidence on this they can actually get that figure, but you have a 1 in 10 million shot of jumping out of an airplane, realizing your parachute doesn't work, and living through it. Because some have. How many? 1 in 10 million chances, 1 times 10 to the 7th. 10 to the 7th, that's just scientific notation, so we don't have to write the 7 zeros. Okay, picture this. I think this is the best way to explain it. Let's say that one of you, the Mega Millions Lotto, hits its like huge 125 million jackpot. All right, because it did when I bought this thing and I calculated it. So let's say, what do I have? 10, 40. Okay. Okay. So let's say it's at that 125 million spot. Someone buys one ticket and they win. Someone in here buys one ticket and they win. Woo! All right? Is that amazing? Well, not really. Someone's going to win. Okay. Let's say that person waits until the jackpot gets up to huge again. They're like, yeah. They buy one ticket and they win. Now they just won, with 2 tickets, they won 2 Mega Million Lottos. Let's say they do that 6 times. How many of you, in your rational thinking minds, are thinking, wow, how lucky? Or what are you really thinking? Somebody tell me. Yeah. There is some thinking going on behind this. There's some plan behind this. No one would think otherwise. And that's only, I calculated it. Your odds of winning the lot, Mega Million Lotto 6 or 8 times are 1 in 10 to the 48th power. There's no chance it's going to happen. Well, people like to say there's always a chance. No, there's limitations. The kind of numbers we're working with, I could multiply all the atoms in the entire universe times every second since the beginning of time, and you're still not going to have numbers that are going to reach what you need. So chance sometimes has no chance, mathematically. So winning the lotto 6 or 8 times is 1 in 10 to the 48th power. No one in here, in their rational thinking, would say that that was just chance. However, the number I just gave you, with how vast the universe has to be, if the universe differed by 1 part in 10 to the 60th, we wouldn't be here. You think that's chance? That's way, way worse odds than the lotto 6 straight times. Did the universe just hit the lotto more than 6 straight times? Is that what you want to believe? You can. It's free will to believe what you want, but with your choice comes consequences if you're wrong. Reality has a nasty habit of bruising those who don't go with it. The odds of getting just one of the things I told you right was 1 in 10 to the 53rd power. And actually some people said, well, you know what, no, we can explain the perfect balance that you need with the mass of the universe. We can explain that with this hyperinflation that took place in the early universe. Okay, you can try to explain it that way. It makes sense to me when I saw their explanation, but the problem is, what made that so perfect? What they found out is the expansion of, when you look at the expansion force in space, it is so finely tuned, it makes all these numbers look tiny. And think about this. The quarks have to have just the right strong nuclear force. The proton has to be just the right size to the electron. The magnetosphere has to be able to form. The gravity and expansion force have to be just right with the mass of the universe. All of these things are at the exact precise range, all in combination with each other, fitting the external requirements or patterns for advanced life to be here. When science looks at this, they have a thing called phase space. What that is picture a giant block, and then you have marbles on there. And all the marbles represent all the possible universes there could be. When they start looking at these things, they're like, this has to be just right, this has to be just right, this has to be just right, this has to be just right. They end up saying that you have more marbles than atoms in the universe, and all of them are red, meaning no life possible. There's just a few little green ones, and somehow we yanked out the green. Is that the kind of chance you want to be betting on? You have to. If you don't believe there's purposeful agent behind it, that's what you have to believe. And to help you understand, when I was debating the guy at University of Michigan, he said something about, I can't remember his response. He wasn't ready for it. So, and that's not speaking bad against him. No one's ready for this. There isn't legitimate answers for this. We'll get into the only option they do have, which I would say is legitimate, but is nothing compared to the evidence against it. But what I'm going to give you right now is, I want to give you some quotes from scientists involved. Now, quotes are not proof. This doesn't prove what I'm saying. What I'm trying to tell you is this, though. The well-established, peer-reviewed understanding in the scientific community is our universe is finely tuned. It's Goldilocks. Somehow got it just right. Here's what they're saying. Freeman, is it Dyson? Yeah. Physicist Freeman Dyson says, the more I examine the universe and the details of its architecture, the more evidence I find that the universe in some sense must have known we were coming. I chose all atheists and agnostics. I didn't use any Christians on this. Well, some of them used to be atheists and agnostics. Paul Davies has moved from promoting atheism to recognizing that, and here's his quote, the laws of physics seem themselves to be a product of exceedingly ingenious design. There is, for me, more powerful evidence that there is something going on behind it all. It's like the lotto is in it. It seems as though somebody has fine-tuned nature's numbers to make the universe. The impression of design is overwhelming. Sir Frederick Hoyle, very well-known atheist, said, a common-sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super-intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as with chemistry and biology, and there are no blind forces worth speaking of in nature. The numbers one calculates from the facts seem to me so overwhelming as to put this conclusion almost beyond question. When studying this, Professor of Mathematical Physics Frank Tipler said, from the perspective of the latest physical theories, Christianity is not a mere religion, but an experimentally testable science. And the Bible adds, what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. This is the well-established scientific understanding. Now, I could do more, and more, and more. See, ever since we started finding these, they don't go away. They just keep finding more. I can give you, if you did a study in the scientific literature, here's what you'd find. This is a graph of how many articles are written about fine-tuned things that's in the universe versus years at the bottom. And once they started finding it, it went exponential. They're like, oh my goodness, let's start looking for this. We've got a lot of good articles because the universe looks designed. Oh, and they're basically, almost all of them are atheist and agnostic too. But they can't get around the facts. This is not going away. So one of the things I have in the notes, there's a blank spot. And it says, it is on, on this side where it says, kind of near this on the bottom, it says endless stuff. And there's a blank. What I put in the blank there is trends, T-R-E-N-D-S. Trends are important in science because trends will overwhelm people's opinions, perspectives, and biases. If you want there to be a God, or if you don't want there to be a God, you're going to have a bias. But when you see a trend like this over time, it doesn't give a care about your bias. It's going to run you over. So this is not escapable. What we see in the universe is like a soundboard, but vastly, not even comparably close, more fine-tuned than any soundboard. Each little dial, and there's hundreds of these, have to fit within a specific range. You touch it a little bit this way, sound's gone. Universe is silent. But so this one has to be just right, so does this one, so does this one, so does this one. And they all have to work in combination. And the external pattern is requirements to have life. And you need a purposeful mind to make one match the other. There is one other possibility, we'll get to that. Science can't, they can't help themselves. I mean, all my information I'm getting from these atheists and agnostics who are writing stuff. This one was talking about the K-array supercomputer array. So the German and Japanese scientists and engineers put this 83,000 supercomputers networked all together to make one giant computer, basically, the K-array. They simulated 1 second of brain activity. It took them 40 minutes to do it, to full simulation, but it simulated 1 second of brain activity. That is, and when I say simulated, it didn't give it like actual consciousness or choices or emotions or any of the good stuff. It just had as many electrical firings as goes on in the brain in 1 second. It took 83,000 supercomputers, one of the most vast things we have. It took them 40 minutes to have as many connections as we have going on in 1 second. Now that is an amazing achievement. Those German engineers and Japanese scientists, that's a crazy feat. But a lot of people started bringing this up saying, well, look, we can create this. I was like, you didn't just say that. I was like, let's do a napkin calculation. Let's just compare the efficiency. If it took 83,000 supercomputers, and let's just be really nice and say each of those and everything it takes to run one of those 83,000 is about the size of a brain. I'll give you that. And let's just be really generous and say that they could go for 70 years like a brain. Okay? Now let's compare just efficiency. Not all the good stuff your brain can do, just the efficiency. The human brain is, what was it? It was, when I did the calculation, it was so many quadrillion times more efficient than the K-array. And that's just the efficiency, not even the good stuff. What that means is, whatever led to the creation of the human brain is that many quadrillion times more intelligent and better funded than the German and Japanese science engineers who did that. Can't help themselves. This was an article that was in an engineering article. Basically, it just listed all these things from nature that we copied. The syringe, Velcro, so on and so forth. There's some amazing designs in nature that we just copied, and our copies aren't as good as the original. Now, when you want to cheat on a test, you don't look over and try to cheat from a rock or an Ohio State football player. You have to cheat from something smarter than you. Yeah, I'm a Michigan fan. I got some grudges against Ohio State. They've been pounding us for too long. We are copying from something that many people are claiming is pure chance, no intelligence involved. But this article points to it. So, hey man, there's some unbelievable designs in nature. Look at all the stuff we copied. And you can go on and on with that. So, a bunch of dots. You can make a bunch of dots make something. If you choose each dot to have a specific range of shading, and each dot to be within a specific range of where you place it, they could be a little bit different, but not too much. When you put all those choices of ranges together in combination, you can make it fit, if you have an intelligence behind it, an external pattern. This person did a beautiful drawing of this baby with dots. This is exactly what we see in nature. All these things we talk about have to be within a specific range. They're all in combination with each other, and they fit an external pattern that ends up with all the beauty we see. And we're able to see it because it allows for advanced life. So, we started with the two big questions. Does God exist? And what's the purpose of life? I showed you it's a lot simpler than people make it. There's only two possibilities. And it depends on how you answer that first question. So you need to answer the first question, does God exist? We covered just a tiny bit right now. But that was covered in part 2. The evidence is bigger than the questions. We have the evidence to answer the questions. Part 3 is you have to make your choice. Now, you can choose, whether you want to cause trouble, like with the door knocker, or make something beautiful, like that picture. It takes the properties of an intelligent agent to do this. You know the difference. Even with that alphabet serial message, children know the difference. So if that God exists, now you have to make your choice. I think the evidence on this really pushes me, certainly, obviously, in one direction. I believe there is a personal, purposeful creator. Therefore, only that creator would know what our actual purpose with a capital P is. If you think you know better, explain your logic to me. I'll start listening to you once you can do universe kind of stuff. So if God's, and now we didn't go into any specific, basically I just gave evidence that there's a super intelligence beyond all humanity. Muslims will say, hey, that could be our God. Hindus could say, hey, it could be any of our gods. Yeah, right. I'm just giving a purposeful intelligence, but I didn't give you the full cumulative case. I didn't go into Jesus yet. There's the same evidence there. And for the Bible. And in other areas, pointing out how no other belief system, including atheism or agnosticism, can even approach the level of verification Christianity does. So if Christianity is true, then the source, did this being just, a lot of people believe this, especially when bad stuff happens, a lot of poor people want to live how they want to be their own God. They'll say, okay, yeah, God created it, but, and I did, at UCLA, I went to UCLA and talked to this mathematics professor there, and he was an atheist, and he's just like, I just can't, blind faith, I just can't do that. I was like, blind faith? Why do you think Christianity is blind faith? And he's like, well, because you guys have no reasons. I was like, well, I'm sorry, you must have been talking to the wrong people. You want to hear some? When I gave him 10 minutes worth of the presentation I gave on Cause of the Universe, that one is very strong. After about 15, 20 minutes, he stands up and he's like, okay, there's a God. But it's not going to change my life at all. And I said, wow, kudos to you, because not many people can change a belief system that quick. But you know what the evidence is. You're smart enough with your math. You know there's no way around it. But then I said, did you see how you just jumped away from your thinking and into emotion? So what you're saying is, whether there's an almighty creator who created you with a purpose or not, has no difference. Is that what you're trying to say? Like, oh yeah. So, did this God just create and then just go away, got disinterested? Maybe, it's a possibility, but no evidence goes that way. Logically, why? Why put all this, we just saw the effort it would take, and I don't know how you gauge effort with a God, but if there's this much purpose going on, you'd have to give me a lot of good reasons why you think this God would just walk away. Not to mention, we have evidence that he didn't. We have evidence that this God came and displayed himself as personally as God could. Show us what he is. And gave evidence for that, to back that up. So now, when I say that, if you have the right source, you can get the right answers. So if this God decided to speak through the Bible, through Jesus, then what does that say? That's where we get our capital P. That's where we get our purpose. It's the only place we can get equal purpose for all people. It's the only place. And that purpose is, Jesus summed it up, to know and love God and love others. Now, there's a lot of smaller purposes that can kind of tie into that. You can still have your family, your career, your health, your fun, all those good purposes. And in fact, what I want you to do, I want you to list out your 5 most important things in your life that you think are most important. Write them out. If you don't have a pen, think it out. But I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want you to come up with the handful of the most important things in your life. Most important priorities. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. All right. Now think of your free time. If you had to divide your free time in this month up into percentages, you don't have to write this down, but think about this. So here's your 5 most important things you have right here. If I had the time, what I would do is, and I did this with the class, I have them write out their 5 things, and then I have them write what percentage of their free time do they spend on each of these 5 things. You see what I'm trying to do here? Are you living according to what you say is important? Like, first of all, I'll say, go put your 5 things on a wall. So some people put God, relationship with God, they'll put that on the wall. And I said, put a height equals importance to you. A lot of people put God up top, some didn't. It's their choice. A lot of people put family, friends, career, success. Some people put happy, just being happy, comfort, whatever. Those are all fine. Those are all fine purposes. But think what priority you have them in, and then I tell them, I give them an Excel spreadsheet. I have them type in their 5 things. I have them put their percentages there, and then I graph it. And what I'm trying to get at here is, are you living according to the purposes you know? If there is a creator who created you with a capital purpose, and that purpose is to know him, and to love others, are you putting your most valuable thing, your free time, into that? No. Do I feel guilty when I watch TV? No. I don't feel guilty at all. I need it. I need to chill out. I love mountain biking. I do that too. If I watch 5 hours of TV every day, oh yeah, whoa, then TV is one of my top priorities. So you can literally, you don't need horoscopes. I can disprove horoscopes if anyone wants that. There's a funny little way to expose that whole mess. If you want to know your future, it's easy. Find out if there's a God or not. Then base your purposes on that answer, and your purposes will lead you to expected results. Now, if your purposes include, if you think there's a God, and you have God's importance and families and whatever, your free time should kind of mirror that to some extent. You should be putting a good chunk of your free time into God, if you think there is a God. If you don't waste any time with him. But if there is, there's consequences. All right. Okay. So, the 2 big questions, we have a source that gives us a reliable answer. And you can make a choice that's best for you based on that. If you make any other choice that goes against what the evidence shows you and against reality, reality never fails to bring the consequences, good or bad. So choose wisely. All right. Questions? I'm going to do questions right now. So I have a website called Thoughtful Beliefs. If you want more, for example, like right now, because I've been blessed with this physicist job, I'm not like charging. I'm just trying to get this information out there. If any church, group, or whatever wants a presentation, get a hold of me. Thoughtfulbeliefs.org. You can also ask Jan. She has a way to contact me. So presentations are possible, and the website's not done yet, but when it is done, it's going to have all my evidence stuff. Basically what it does is it walks people through. There's a frequently asked questions section, so any question you have, you'll be able to type it in and it'll come up, and if it's not up, you can send it to me and then I'll get to it at some point. But there's frequently asked questions, so if any people you're trying to talk to has a question, you can say, oh, that's a good question. Haven't really looked into it, let me get back with you. Go to my website, I'll give you a really brief answer and then a detailed one if they want that. The other part of the website has like videos and all these other resources, but it's mainly divided up into sections to walk someone through who's a skeptic. So it first says, the first thing you have to do is you have to show, why is this even important? Belief in God, is that even, what I believe about God, is that even important? You have to show that first. Otherwise, they're not motivated to listen to anything else. So first I show that it will impact you more than anything else in life. The next thing you have to show that truth can be known. There is truth and you can know it. A lot of people say, oh, there's no way we can know. I mentioned this before. The response is, well, how do you know you can't know? If you look. So in that section, I show that truth can be known. There is truth and it can be known. Then the next section is evidence. And I'll have evidence from science, history, literature, theology, philosophy, all over. Just depends what you like or what the person needs. And then after that, I'll have a section called You Made Your Bet. And what that is, I'm going to cover, see, Christians are always on the defensive, answering questions, stuff like that. And that's fine. We got great answers. But people don't stop to look at their own different beliefs. I do. There is massive irrational problems with every other belief system. And I'm saying this out of love. I'm not saying this putting people down. I could easily fall into any of that.